basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He is Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. Celtic Chalk Talk is a pod dedicated to the surprisingly good Boston Celtics this season, something that we'll talk about on this show. That is from a lifelong fan, Steve. His pod, again, the Celtic Chalk Talk, will drop new episodes every Monday, but this is the Shotclock pod, the best 24 minutes of random NBA thoughts online anywhere. This podcast was born out of the content of Steve's 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts after week 7 of the 2025-26 NBA season, which includes a little blurb on the Celtics, which we teased already. Steve, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Clock is going. All right. We're going to start first with some analytics, right? Analytics show that this is a faster game, and generally a faster game is going to favor a younger team. And this is being proven true as some teams with young, high-energy defensive disruptors, and I love that term, are doing better than expected. Tell us a little bit about that.
First of all, I believe each team is averaging a little over 2 possessions per game more this year and what's interesting, 6 years ago, they're averaging over 10 possessions more per game, which is really, when I looked it up, it just fascinated me. But the realization, and it's always been a pet peeve for me, when I watch these teams go out and get a 32-year-old man or a 31-year-old man and pay ridiculous money, because to me, it's diminishing returns. They can't play every night. At some point in their career, they're at the point where they can't play back-to-back. So you're paying a lot of money, and they're good. And in the playoffs, they can help you, but they're going to be out, and the injuries are going to occur more often. The game is getting faster, and there's a lot of stars that have been hurt. Curry, Antetokounmpo, they've been hurt already. And the game, Draymond Green's another one, but the game has gotten fast. Those people, their bodies are breaking down, and they're not handling their soft tissue injuries, which will be a length of time. So now you're seeing guys who are defending and wearing people down. The game end, they always get around the ball, disrupt, deflect, do different things to cause a problem. Having said all that, the game's changing. One of the pet peeves, as I said, was general managers and all still go out and get that 32-year-old and give him money, but he's slowing you, he's hurting you. When these young guys, and the guys I named, I think outside of Dyson Daniels, were all on rookie contract, and Davion Mitchell, we're all on rookie contracts. You're paying very little money, and you're getting a great return. Well, Sark Thompson, my goodness, and Amen Thompson, they're great defenders. And you see them guard the best guy on other teams, and it just wears teams down because they're everywhere, and they're on top of everybody. So the game changes while the GM's changing, or they're doing the safe bet. Well, pay for James Harden, 36-year-old man. He's still good, but he slows your game down. He slows your team down. And I don't know if that's the way to go in the NBA right now.
Yeah, proof's in the pudding, right? One of the youngest teams in the NBA is defending the NBA champions. You called out guys like Davion Mitchell, Dyson Daniels, Kaser Wallace. You've called out a few others in your article. These teams, Jordan Walsh, who we'll talk a little bit about later, these guys are on teams that are doing better than expected, and that's because the game favors these guys right now. It does not favor older teams. Let's talk about that, because there's a flip side to this, right? You talked about folks like James Harden. You talked about Draymond Green and others. The Clippers and the Warriors, they're not young, and they're showing their age, aren't they?
When you think about it, the Warriors went out and got Jimmy Butler last year. And
Right.
I have to believe now,
Sure.
when you look at their roster, they got Curry, they got Green. They want to try to keep it going. Obviously, they're built for the playoffs. They have to stay healthy, get to the playoffs, and get in a position to play. But and if you look at the Clippers, everybody thought they were a favorite in the West coming into the season. But they're slow in their roll. You make those choices with Butler, and probably Golden State had little choice in doing. because it's either that or Steph Curry's going to say, I want out. And now you're starting at the bottom. Well, you're taking one more shot with the old guys. It's not working. It's no guys are getting hurt. Golden State's a 500 team. They went out and signed Al Horford, who's almost as old as me. And I like Al Horford, but
Yeah.
out a lot. And he's got the sciatica, which LeBron had. You want to play with those guys, you're going to have a problem. And Golden State is still tough, but they show weakness. The Clippers, we talked about that last week. There is no way to solve that problem. They're just not going to be very good for a while. Don't win. That's the point.
Yeah, and there's another thing you alluded to. We talked about if it's a faster game, stands to reason older people are going to have a little bit more trouble there. But you alluded to the fact that this also going to increase, or very likely to increase injury, which you're starting to see. Because when you have to move faster, your body can't do it. Your mind wants to, your body can't anymore, and that's how folks get hurt. And we're starting to see that as well.
And
All right, let's talk.
Don't forget, for a guy like Butler, he's still effective and pretty good, but he's not as good. It's not like they completely drop off to horror, but those little drops make a big difference, and that's where a guy like Butler is.
Yep. Let's talk about a bunch of little drops that have made a big difference in New Orleans. Unfortunately for Zion Williamson, is the Zion era over in New Orleans?
I think it is, because New Orleans can't just keep hoping that if he's healthy, we're going to win more games. And they've got to just sit there and say, what do we do here? And they've got to move him. I don't know. He's not going to get what he would have gotten for 2 years ago. But I just think that every year they come in saying, if Zion's healthy, we can do this. He's not healthy. And it's just not meant to be. And the other piece that goes with that, and I wonder about this, does he like the game? I read something a few days ago that somebody said they thought Zion has more talent than LeBron. Think about that.
Yeah.
But the problem is LeBron loves basketball. Zion doesn't. And if that's true, it's a fascinating statement. And if it's true, it tells you everything. And you know what? Greatness isn't just being able to do it. It's how far you work to be great. And if Zion isn't, for the first time this year, he came in shape. He still got hurt. But if he's not totally wanting to be a great player, it does happen. And you know what? Let's think about this. Zion, very talented, obviously, making a lot of money. Probably made over $100 million in the last couple of years with his contract.
Sure.
If you're a person that's not motivated, like Ben Simmons, I got enough to care. And they do have enough generational wealth. However, you could have been somebody everybody talked about as one of the great ones of all time, up there with the Jerry Wests of 60 years ago, 50 years ago, up there with all those great players we can think about. And it just isn't that important to you. Where all of us as fans would do anything if we had that talent.
Yeah, it's almost difficult to wrap your head around that. I think something else is going on with Zion, though. I want to get your thoughts, because I always thought of Zion, I thought of Blake Griffin. Okay, a really dynamic player, can average 20 points, pull down 20 boards, not a good free throw shooter, not a good shooter. And I wonder if that game has kind of passed these guys by, the guys in that mold. They're still going to be good, but again, the game has passed that era by. We don't have the bigs anymore that go down low. You have smatterings of them, but you don't have guys that can't shoot threes, that can't shoot free throws. Blake Griffin's career dissipated when the game changed, and Zion is not a three-point shooter. He's not a free throw maker. Has the game passed that type of player by?
I think Blake Griffin, his career downfall, I think, coincided with the leg knee. He had leg problems.
No doubt.
Zion, the thing about Zion, like Charles Barkley body. And when you have that type of body and you watch him go into the basket, I don't know anybody who's got the courage to stand in front of him, because he's going to run you over. And he's a pretty big boy. And he can, so I think Zion can still be effective. I don't quite understand why he's always having leg problems. Why? I still think he can play. The problem is 20 games or 30 games in a season doesn't help you. And what? I don't know how to fix the leg problem, but by the same token, you can't count on him. And that's the bottom line.
Yep, that sounds like that era is winding down in New Orleans. Let's see what's next for Zion. Let's talk good news. Despite having a poor record, things might be looking up in Utah. You called out some good players, and it seems like they've got something building in Utah. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, they're probably playing for one more lottery pick. But what people need to understand is Keontae George is real. He's a guard. He's averaging over 20 points a game, about 7 assists, and he can play. He can play, and he goes through hot streaks. He can score. And then the other guy, Lauri Markkanen, he's been an all-star. He's really 7 points, 28 points this year. He's good. But and I wondered, what the hell is Utah doing for all these years? But now you're starting to see a semblance of a team. They've got Kessler, who's hurt. That's a big loss. He's a pretty good center. He's a good rim protector. He's a rebounder. So he's out for the year. We did pick Ace Bailey. I believe he's averaging about 10 a game. Ace Bailey will get better. That might be your third guy. So you're starting to put some pieces around the situation, and maybe you got something here with the fact that they're going to get a lottery pick. And if it's a top 3, my goodness, all of a sudden, they become pretty good. Because people have been waiting to see if Markkanen would be traded. People were waiting. What are they doing? They're slowly putting something together. I forgot to mention Al Filipowski, who's another one. They got him in the second round. And he's playing fairly well. So look at the pieces they're starting to assemble, and they're not that bad. Yeah, they're 8-14 or something poor, but it's not far away from being legit. And it's good to see, because if you think about it on the bigger picture, Danny Ainge's reputation, and he's one of the better GMs in the league, or presidents would say, was taking a beating. And because he going back, he traded Mitchell, he traded Gobert, and did all those things. So it's nice to see, because slowly they're starting to piece something together. And they have the best fans around. Those fans will support them no matter how bad or how whatever the situation. So
Yeah, quick shout out to the fans of Utah. I got to see a game there on a random cold Tuesday against a not very good at the time Orlando Magic, and the place was packed. I had a great time in Utah. All right, let's talk about CP3, right? CP3's career was carved out as being a bit of a disruptor. Now, not on the defensive side, the guys we talked about before, but he would disrupt, right? He was opinionated, he was loud, he was brash, but he was also the best player on the team. Now he's not, but he's still that loud, brash guy, and it looks like the Clippers have had enough, and that's why they did what they did. Was CP3 forced out for being CP3?
Well, let me ask you, you're out in California. What's your thoughts, and what is the official word out there?
Yeah. Honestly, just that, man. I think you absolutely nailed it. CP3 was just a loud dude. And what I heard today, I want to give credit where it's due. Chris something, forgive me, Chris. But he reported that CP made an adjustment. He whispered no, he didn't whisper, right? But he commented to Kawhi that he was getting torched by Klay Thompson. So he said, listen, maybe wait till you get warmed up to defend Klay. Let somebody else defend him until you feel like you got your legs. And so the Clippers listened to CP3, went out there and changed the defensive assignment. And Jeff Van Gundy didn't like that. And he said, listen, man, you might have leeway in other places. You don't have any leeway here. So Jeff Van Gundy stepped up, said something, and that was the beginning. Maybe not the beginning, but a continuation of butting to the heads. CP3 was coaching, which you expect this guy to coach. He's always been that way, but it just did not sit well with Jeff Van Gundy, who's the defensive coach of the Clippers. And that's just one example of what I think are many. He was just interjecting when he shouldn't have been interjecting, and now he's looking for a job.
What's the feeling in Los Angeles about this? If there's any number of fans left, well, go ahead.
Clipper fans, they're not quite Utah fans in the sense that they show up because if the team's not doing well, you're not going to show up and sell out the Intuit Dome. But they're passionate. Clipper fans are very passionate about their team. They're hurt. This is not a good look. And the biggest takeaway here that's jarred me is people are starting to say, listen, Steve Ballmer's not the great coach or the great owner or the governor that we think he is. He unceremoniously dumped or okayed the dumping of Blake Griffin after pomp and circumstance to get him to resign, and now they're doing the same thing with CP3. It's telling players you don't want to play there, right? You got a passionate fan base. They're not huge, but they got a passionate fan base. You got the richest owner in the game. You got a wonderful new arena, but they're not player friendly. And it's a kiss of death. Just not a good look.
It's, first of all, Chris Paul learned what all players learn, though. If you're not very good, shut your mouth. He didn't. And I think that story with Van Gundy, I'm sure it happened, but I think when people blow up at other people, there's been things that built up to that. So I think Chris Paul's been grating on people for a while. This was a result. When you talk about the Clippers and the big picture with Ballmer, I agree with you. I think there's some problems there. But I think Ballmer, supposedly, there's a big thing about his loyalty to people. And at some point, and I know Tyronn Lue's got a great reputation in the league. I get it. He almost became the head coach of the Olympic team. And it was either him or Spoelstra. However, and Frank has been there forever, and I'm sure there's a good relationship. At some point, you got to sit there and say, we're in a mess. We got to do something here. And I'm not asking to fire somebody or whatever it is, but something, if we're going to do this the same way, look at the results.
Yeah.
I mean, every way we're falling apart. So, and the Chris Paul thing just looks bad.
Yeah.
It just looks bad. And Ballmer, I know he okayed it, but he should have gotten in the middle of it in some way and tried to soften the situation because it's horrible. And the last thing on that is, will they, in 5 years, 2 years, will they think about retiring Chris Paul? And will Chris Paul accept that?
Wow.
He's tired. And that's really a hit when that happens. If the player wants no part of it. So that's how bad the situation is to me.
Yeah. No, undeniably agreed on all points. The Clippers are the only NBA franchise that have not lifted a jersey. So when that happens, can you imagine if the player says no, thank you?
I don't think he will. Yeah.
Wow. Let's go from bad to worse, potentially worse. We talked about the Zion era potentially being over in New Orleans. Is the Giannis Antetokounmpo era over in Milwaukee?
I think Giannis is torn between loyalty and what's good for him. So I think there's a back and forth on that. I think Milwaukee has tried to what they think fix the problem, meaning to get good enough so Giannis stays. They're not good enough. I think it probably is best for everybody if he gets dealt because it's a waste of a great player. The interesting thing, though, is now for Milwaukee, if he wants out and he picks the Knicks, that's a problem. Why is it a problem? Because the Knicks don't have what they need. They need draft picks and they need younger talent. The only thing the Knicks can offer is Karl Anthony Towns and Anunoby. A big deal. You're not going to win, and you're not going to win much, and you don't have a future. The Knicks don't have many draft picks. So if Giannis pushes them into a corner, they've got to think about it and say, okay, he was great for us. He won us a title. Yeah. Do we do what he wants? Or he's got to understand that's not helping us. It's only going to mean that we're going to be 5 years or whatever it is to be decent. Don't forget, they don't have many draft picks. So if he doesn't, it opens up. Supposedly San Antonio's waiting and wanting him, figuring with him and Wembanyama and Fox, thinking they have a chance to win the league, or at least they can compete with Oklahoma. So there's a lot of variables. Houston's another team that could get involved in it. But when they say that, you're talking about Şengün. And I don't know if that's a great move because I think Şengün has become a really good player. So there's a lot of teams that could get in. I don't think the Bucks want to trade Giannis to an Eastern Conference team because you don't want him going after you. And if he goes to the Knicks, that's an Eastern Conference team. The word was in the summer they tried to trade, and the Bucks wanted Brunson. The Knicks wouldn't put him in, so that's what killed the deal. If that's true, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. But that's, I guess, the thumbnail on what's going on.
Very interesting to see. Always hard to see when the separation of somebody who's just been the face of that franchise, brought him a franchise. But it happens. It's just the way the game goes. Now,
The interesting thing that is that Giannis is injured. He's out now for a couple of weeks with a calf, and he's missing more and more games each year. And you're gambling. You're giving up in the future with draft picks and everything else, and you don't know if this guy's going to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Another
No doubt. Let's see how things play out in Milwaukee. Now, the shot clock is winding down. We got two topics, so I'm going to conflate these into one, okay? One is bad news, one is good news. The bad news is the Washington Wizards, and I'm going to read what you wrote because this does not come from me. This comes from Steve Purciello, and I'm just going to read it. If you are watching the Washington Wizards, I have one question for you. Why are you watching? Which is funny, but they're not playing defense. So let's talk a little bit about the Wizards. And then on the other side of the spectrum are the Boston Celtics and their the season surprise. They're playing better than expected. Tell us about both teams.
First of all, I've watched the last couple of weeks. I've watched a few games with the Wizards. If you're a basketball fan and you really like the game and kind of know the game, you like a team that digs in and defends and is gritty.
Yeah.
Washington is none of that. It seems like every guy is playing for another contract outside of McCollum and Middleton, but they're playing for a contract and they just want to score. And it's just horrible to watch. I feel sorry for their coach, Brian Keefe, because God, I watched the Celtic game the other night and they were joking. I was watching them on the Celtic, and I guess Scalabrini or Drew Carter, the announcers, were joking because they thought that Washington would be out of timeouts by the end of the third quarter because Brian Keefe continually tried to time out and try to get them to defend somebody. They weren't. Now, The other piece to that is, I believe they're giving up over 128 points a game. The all-time record in the NBA is 130.7 by the Nuggets. They're taking a shot at trying to beat the all-time record, which takes a lot of work to do if you think about it. That's, 33 points a quarter, 32 and a half points a quarter, which is crazy.
Average.
Yeah. It's just wild. And Boston didn't really shoot well in one of the games. In the other games I saw, it wasn't like a team was hot as much as they were just scoring at will. And that was the take I had. I felt sorry for their coach because I guess his message isn't working. And I guess for Washington, they'll stick with him because they're not very good and let him, when they get better, then they'll move on. But now you want to talk about the Celtics?
Tell me why they are doing better than people thought they would.
I believe the more I watch, Brad Stevens just does a great job. And I'm going to give you why. 2 years ago, the guy in the second round who was supposedly a good defender, and he's one of the top people coming out of high school to go to Arkansas, was Jordan Walsh. They said he was a project. This year, he's become a player. Now, they also this year had a first, I believe it was 28th. They took a guy by the name of Hugo Gonzalez. Now, he's 19 years old. Missoula's put him on some of the best guys on other teams when he plays. And he's going to be a player. It's just a matter of time. Then what Brad Stevens did, he signed Josh Minott. Josh Minott was playing on the bench for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they picked up on it and they grabbed him. They signed him very cheap for 2 years. Now, Minott is also playing a lot of the floor for Jordan Walsh, but also because Luka Garza, another guy they picked up from Minnesota, wasn't working as a backup center. They're using Minott, who's only about 6'8". They're using him as the backup center behind Kata, which I'll get to Kata in a second. But Minott has the small five. It really opened things up for him offensively when Kata goes out of the game. Now, the Myers Kata was a guy 2 years ago, Boston Celtics, Sacramento of all teams cut him, which doesn't surprise me. But He came to camp and had another guy, Wayne Gabriel, who was supposed to be the big guy that they were looking for the future. They cut him and they kept Kada. Kada played, showed signs of being very good, but then he should break down defensively or do stupid things, and he'd constantly get pulled. 2 years later, now don't forget, they had Horford, Cornet, Porzingis ahead of him. Those guys are gone. So now they put him out there, and he's a pleasant surprise. He's excellent on the pick and roll, going to the basket for the alley-oop, and defensively, he's taking up space, and he's blocking shots and rebounding. It's almost like a perfect thing for him. All these guys have truly played well. Now, the last piece that had is Jalen Brown, all NBA. He's just outstanding. So you've got all these pieces, and wow, like nobody expected it. I never saw it coming, but that's where they are. Now, if these guys continue to play well, this team's dangerous. This team's really dangerous in the playoffs. And let's just see if Jason Tatum makes a comeback this year. They've got a shot at the East. I didn't say a championship because nobody beats Oklahoma, but they've got a shot at the East, as good a shot as any of the other teams.
Yeah. Outstanding. This was a two-parter, right? This was 13 rules overtime because you heard the buzzer go off and we went to another topic. And it was also, apparently we morphed into Celtic Chalk Talk. I don't know how that happened.
We didn't mention the Celtic-Laker game the other night. I was away. What happened in that one? Did the Lakers play well?
You heard the shot clock go off. That's it. Thanks. Our time is up. I appreciate you listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article linked below or wherever you are listening and watching this show today. Yeah, the Lakers got spanked, and it was Chris Haynes, who I referenced earlier. I do want to give those two shout-outs. But, of course, please subscribe, follow, comment. All that stuff means the world to us. Thank you. Thank you. Join us next week for more Random NBA Thoughts as we recap week number 8. We'll talk then. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.